I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Move on to consent.
I'll second, but I would also like to pull G.
G, okay. There's a move to approve the consent agenda with the absence of G, and we'll discuss that after we either approve or disapprove the consent agenda. All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
For clarification purposes, who made the motion?
Bob did
Okay.
move, sorry. So. Do you want a motion still? Or do you want approval?
Yes, approval.
So, aye.
Aye, sorry.
Aye. Okay, consent agenda approved. Item G.
Well, yep, so the township, so my question is, I know we're just approving right now St. Joseph and St. Wendell Township for the fire contract currently because St. Joseph Township is still looking at their end, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. The intent was to, right now, as you know, we have one contract with the city and both townships in one contract, so the intent was always to have them have separate contract, service type contracts. So the St. Wendell Township Board, they did approve the contract that was presented to them. It's really based on the League of Minnesota Cities template, and our attorney reviewed that. I reviewed that along with Finance Director Lori Bartlett. So yeah, for your consideration tonight is to approve the service contract with the City of St. Joseph and St. Wendell Township.
Okay. I would like to table that until the rest of the council is present, you know.
Why?
Because so St. Joseph Township hasn't done anything yet. My question is if St. Joseph has until the end of December, is that correct to look at it?
Well, that's when the contract expires, the
Correct.
current contract.
Okay, because I think this one right now is just St. Wendell's and us, so not St. Joseph's Township.
Right, but I like to, because the whole structure's gonna change once we take full, ownership of the fire hall. So,
Well-
depending upon what we have to pay back, how we figure out how it's all gonna work, and then it'll be, pushing numbers again to make it work. So we might have to redo, percentages or something.
Well, so just to clarify, St. Wendell Township has no ownership in any of the
Right, I know.
equipment, okay.
But I wanna see the financial impact before we approve anything, so we can look at both entities with financial data when it comes down to the end of, when it all turns around. So I'll move to table that till the rest of the council's here, because they might have some input on that too, which I, would appreciate their input also.
Yeah, I guess I don't think we need to move it because even in this, the contract, they can even still, in 120 days, say no. So we still have 120 days to
Right.
go back off of the termination. And right now, I think the biggest thing is with St. Joseph Township is the percentage of, they own some of the percentage, when St. Wendell does not, correct?
That's
So
correct.
really, your biggest implications would be St. Joseph Township because they're the ones that have budgetary aspects, not St. Wendell. I think St. Wendell, it's more or less just where the district is, correct? So I think this contract for just St. Joseph and St. Wendell Township is really,
Well, we might have to figure out the percentages based upon a different, algorithm as far as how much each contract is worth.
right, but what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Therese, is St. Wendell doesn't have any ownership.
That is correct.
So right now, this contract has no budgetary financial aspect with St. Joseph and St. Wendell. It's really with St. Joseph Township. So when it comes back to the contract between St. Joseph Township and us, that's why I'm saying I don't think we need to table this specific one. If St. Joseph was signing yes, then that would be the budgetary aspect. That's my thoughts. So I don't think we need to table this specific
Well,
one.
I disagree.
Okay.
I think I need to look at the whole situation with the fire board and the fire hall and the city taking full ownership and full
Right.
responsibility for paying for everything.
Sure, but what I'm on the fire board.
Yeah, and without that, St. Wendell might end up paying more than what they have been on a
I agree with John. I think that we should just move and be able to not table it, but approve it for this evening on G.
Yeah, so I moved to approve 4G. I just wanted more clarification on St. Joseph Township, but I moved on 4G.
I second.
Oh,
Sorry.
there's
I
a move
thought
and
I
a
moved it
second, Bob.
first.
Then I'll second.
There's a motion on the table and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Item 5, wellhead protection update, Katie Rupp, who's on the Rural Water Association. Step forward and say your piece.
Good evening. My name is Katie Brett. I am with Minnesota Rural Water Association. And Minnesota Rural Water is a nonprofit agency, or entity, I should say, but we contract with the Minnesota Department of Health. So I am the technical service provider, and I work with Ryan on wellness protection and protecting your drinking water source and wells as well. Currently, St. Joseph has a wellhead protection plan. It is in two parts. Part 1 is the science background that determines the drinking water supply management area. And the second part is like the boots on the ground implementation measures to protect your drinking water. Currently, they're undergoing a amendment to that plan because the plans are only good for 10 years. Department of Health has worked on the part 1 and has that approved, and that just went out to local government units for an update. And we're approaching the second part where we're gonna form a wellhead protection team and go through and identify those implementation strategies that St. Joe and partners will implement in the next 10 years. Drinking water protection really is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's all about preventing contaminants from entering into the drinking water. The contaminants can adversely affect human health from entering that public water supply. It comes down to you from a federal Safe Drinking Water Act of 1986 and the Minnesota Groundwater Protection Act of 1989. So in 1997, the Minnesota Wellhead Protection Rule was created. That's chapter 4720. And interesting enough, right now we're going through a rule update as well at the state. So it's something to kind of keep in the back of your mind and keep watching because the rules will change, come down the road, about 2 years down the road. Nothing goes really quick at a state level, as I'm sure we're all aware. Currently we're administrating off of present rules. Just so you know, though, there are new rules coming down the line. The responsibilities are the US EPA provides the state programs. They approve the state programs. Minnesota Department of Health oversees the statewide programs. And previous plan to the new plan, and that is what this map depicts. So you'll see on the screen here, the white dashed or light blue dashed line, that was the previous 10-year groundwater captured area, so your previous wellhead protection area. And the blue line is the current one. So the shape did change, and again, in 10 years,
I do. Thank you very much. Good information. You might know this, or Ryan, you might know this. We have wells 3 through 8. 1 and 2, I'm assuming, are done reconstructed. How often do you look at construction and reconstruction and check those wells? You know, we got one, well 3 from 1988, and then we got 95, 96, 2005, 2005, 2005. When do we replace, or what delineates between and decipher between what we need to do for replacing wells?
Well, it's not really, you can't drive it by a time. It's really
Sure.
how the well is producing. So,
Sure.
the wells are tested multiple times throughout the year.
Okay.
Minnesota Department of Health comes around and tests our wells. Of course, we test our water daily. So it's really on the functionality of the well itself.
Okay.
You know, you can kind of see when your well is aging and not producing where it should be. And you know, that's gonna tell you to put a plan in action, but I don't know.
And you do standard services to your wells, and you have a rotation of pulling the pump.
Yep.
So, you guys have a phenomenal plan. It's very impressed in our, because we do evaluation before we approach this, so it's, so we get a better understanding of where things are at, but you guys have a nice routine
Right.
for that.
Yes, is there any expiration date on our aquifer?
Expiration date on your aquifer as in permitting for,
Well, I was watching a show on the Dust Bowl, and the aquifer down in Nebraska that they're taking all the water out of has a limited, at that time on the show, it was a 10-year, it's gone.
okay, so in the aquifer that you guys are pulling from, it is not of concern. Now, permitting for quantity is through Minnesota Department of Health. There is, a aquifer in Minnesota in the metro area that there are restrictions on no new wells going into it. So, like, you know, as much as we like to think in Minnesota, we don't have that scare, there is. Not necessarily locally though, so your aquifer doesn't have any of those restrictions.
Okay, yet,
Let's hope,
okay,
right?
all righty.
I got more. Table 2, your isotope and your water quality results. So all of the things that you test for, why is it saying that your sample collection date is from 2014? Have we not tested for 8+ years, or?
Once we reach year 8 of that plan, or 6 of that plan, that is when Department of Health starts planning already
Okay.
for that next amendment. So that's when they pulled their analysis for redoing this amendment. So not that there hasn't been any new testing since then, that's just when they already started preparing for that. And so with tritium, tritium is an isotope that was released into the atmosphere with nuclear bomb testing. So that's what we use to age the water. And it has a specific half-life. So and it's not a water quality concern as well, but it tells us that young water is getting into your aquifer, which is great for replenishing it, right? But it also means that what's happening on the surface is gonna get into the drinking water as well.
So then when do you sample for that for well 4, 5, and 7?
So, I don't know when 4, 5, and 7 exactly came online, so I can't speak to
Okay.
that. They will do, they might not do tritium sampling
Right.
anymore because it's
Sure.
starting to get that half-life, and that half-life's going away, so they're now looking at new testing mechanisms.
Okay.
But they'll likely test for that again in about 6 to 8 years.
Okay. Ryan, but you test for these other 5 things, correct?
Correct.
Like, okay, because I was just like, arsenic, hey, we should probably test for that.
We do, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Those are the questions I had.
Okay. Anybody else?
Okay, maybe one more. How do you invite the public if they want to be on the board?
So we did send out a mailer to the LGUs.
Yes, local units of
Yeah.
government, yes.
In preparation for part 2, we'll be sending out further notifications to entities or businesses, farmers, really whoever wants to sit on it.
How many people do you want on your team or the second part? As many that want?
That's at your guys'
Right.
discretion. So some have it really small, some have it very, very large. And it also can be that, because let's face it, not everybody wants to attend meeting after meeting after meeting. And we can also pull people in when the timing is right. So like if you have a specialty and say we're gonna talk about egg one day and you're a specialist in the egg, or if that's what affects you personally, we can pull you into that meeting versus having you sit at every single meeting, one in and out.
Awesome.
But, a lot of it will be word of mouth for the small individual citizens. We're just tasked with reaching out to the local units of government, such as the townships, the water districts, and then from there, they can help seek individuals to sit on the committee.
Awesome. Thank you.
Counselor, that's the approach that was taken with the part two the last time, was more of an ad hoc. The representatives that Katie's referencing that tend to add value are the historians, the ones that know where was the fuel tank, where was the gas station. So a lot of the data vetting that occurs at this stage, sometimes the records are incomplete. And so the local historians often help us add some clarity to the data we're trying to vet. So,
Good.
Coffee shop, so if you know there's a local coffee shop, I have been known just to sit down in the coffee shop.
Got one.
Excellent.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the next item, item number 6, parking proposal. Nate, would you like to take that?
Yes, thank you, counselors. So for your consideration this evening is a parking proposal for 103 First Avenue Northwest. And if Kayla, if you can flip over to the screen, just give a visual. So that property is right here. We got the post office over here. So it's on the corner of Ash Street and First Avenue Northwest. So the applicant, Shannon Weigers, we're redeveloping this parcel. It's zoned as B1 downtown commercial. The redevelopment will result in the conversion of a existing residential use into the commercial office space, which matches our current zoning district. The surrounding properties are all zoned B1 downtown commercial as well. Parking code does require that adequate off-street spaces are provided for new uses, and since this is a conversion from what was previously residential into commercial, the off-street spaces must be accounted for. We do have flexibility within our code to look at these from a case-to-case basis during these conversions, and specifically, as you're likely aware, within our downtown, there's a lot of physical land constraints and limited real estate to be able to provide some of this parking, so finding that balance is important and critical. And the conversion will result in 1,700 square feet of office space. Again, code requires 1 space per 250 square feet of office space, so that equates to 6.8 or 7 spaces for off-street. So applicant is proposing to locate 5 off-street spaces as seen in your packets and in the sketch that was provided here. Those 5 off-street spaces will be accompanied by 2 proposed on-street spaces right adjacent to the property on the east side. And the existing garage will be remodeled into office space as part of the conversion as well, with the existing driveway being removed and existing curb cut being closed. So off-street spaces will meet the minimum size requirements, although the drive aisle will be narrow, being 17 feet wide, which is the widest that it can be given the 35 feet from the edge of the building to the northern side property line. It's expected though that most of the off-street spaces will be, or not expected, I should say, that's the wrong word. It's presumed that a lot of these off-street spaces will be used for employee type of parking, given that it is a office conversion and not a retail. So that does lessen potential conflict from traffic coming in and out on a likely less frequent basis. So also the northern side property will have a buffer on it which will be a fence, and that fence will be at least 4 feet in height to just provide some buffer from the use to the adjacent property. Planning Commission did review this and did vote in favor, 6 to 0 on the proposed parking plan. They did suggest that every foot counts in this, so if you can get 18 feet, please do. But the applicant did go out there and mark items in that, so 17. The sketch is reflective of the on-site conditions there. Staff and the applicant, along with Planning Commission, had plenty of discussion, looked at other types of arrangements in that, but given the limited real estate with the property, the northern side is really the only space to add on the property for additional parking. So applicant is here this evening as well, so with that, I'd be happy to answer questions. Otherwise, there would be an action that would be asked from the council on this proposal.
I'll move to approve the parking proposal for Shannon Wigler at 103 First Avenue Northwest.
I second it.
Any word for the person to the north? Is it Daniel Walls, is that correct? Any concerns with him or no? Okay. Okay.
Motion's on the table to approve the parking proposal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is number 7, the Verkada camera system purchase. Anybody here representing Verkada, or is that
So about a year ago or so, the council had directed myself to start looking into camera systems for some of our buildings that were having some vandalism to them, as well as this current building from when we built it in 2017. Some of the cameras are starting to fail in the building. It's been reviewed by some of the staff not to reinvest in the cameras that are failing and to pursue other options. So over the past year, we've been looking into several different systems. We did include it in your packet. Northland Business Solutions, who does some of our camera systems already in the police department in our interview rooms. And so I got a quote from them. Mostly what got really expensive is storage of space, retention data, and also with their service contract not being kind of an all-inclusive, the annual subscription really kind of priced them out of it. At the last council workshop, Verkada did put on a presentation for those present and took questions. I think everybody seemed to be pretty much in favor of how it turned out. Andrew from Verkada had said he would remote in tonight if there's any other questions, but I think pretty much all of them were answered at the last council workshop. So if anybody has any questions, otherwise I've put the numbers in from there.
Now, I move to approve the purchase of the Verkada and installation by Computer Repair Unlimited for the amount of $87,698.23.
motion by Hazen, seconded by Beenick? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So, item 8, Mr. Sabart.
Good evening. Switch screens here. Oh, there it is. So as a follow-up from our past council discussion regarding Elm Street, I mentioned to the council that staff have been meeting with various abutting property owners regarding the nature of the proposed improvements and the city's interest in ultimately acquiring right-of-way to build Elm Street. I'd mentioned at the last meeting we're at a point now to advance that work to both a survey, a topographic survey stage, feasibility report, and then ultimately right-of-way platting stage for the project. And in defining what will ultimately be needed for the right-of-way, we still have to do some amount of preliminary design work to analyze stormwater management, the alignment of the road, geometrics of the road. And so the proposal before you this evening addresses those 4 bullet points with respect to the next step in developing that project. So the one that's probably the most time-sensitive, if you would be to be able to collect the topographic survey before we have, 2 feet of snow covering the ground. So topographic survey, then it's a combination of the preliminary design and the feasibility effort. The assumption that I am making as part of this scope is that, we know we have touchdown points for the road on each side. So we have the cul-de-sac portion of the street, and we have the existing street west of County Road 133. And so that is an existing pavement that maintenance has been on our radar screen in terms of those other sides of the street. So I'm anticipating that we will still need a 429 hearing, and that's why the feasibility report is part of the scope. So with that, if there's questions from the council, the consideration before you then would be to execute the proposed agreement.
Question, if, moved and approved, a 99.8 estimated, once it's approved, you come back with the actuals though, correct?
So this sets in motion actually the estimated fees, and so then if the effort comes in less, you actually don't pay for it, so.
And more?
Well, then I have to come back to you and talk to you about that.
Okay.
So, fortunately, rarely that happens, but if there is something that changes in terms of the nature of the project, then I would be coming back to the council.
And there isn't any concerns with Lori on this?
We have some unspent funds from other projects that we can use towards this. In the long run, depending on how things go, we can wrap it into future debt issues for that particular project, or we can say that we are using just the unspent bond proceeds from a past project, so.
Okay, thank you.
I move to approve.
I second it.
Motion on the table to approve, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Next item, Randy?
So the next item is also a follow-up with respect to the Morningside drainage study. The city had solicited 3 quotes. We've got responses to 2 of them, so the cover sheet here shows the summary of the 2 quotes that we received. One from C&L Excavating for $37,189, and one from Molitor Excavating for $46,290. In visiting with one of the property owners, what I do understand has transpired since our last council meeting is I've likely introduced some confusion in terms of what the scope should be in the project. If you recall, when we had reviewed, or I had reviewed this summary exhibit with the council with the study, you may recall we had 4 scenarios that had been modeled in the hydrology model. And I probably didn't help our case by referencing options 1, 2, 3 and scenarios 1, 2, 3, 4, but those were the various terms that we used. And I had mentioned of the various scenarios that were modeled, these 3 represented the potential improvements that would provide the most protection or alleviate the risk to flooding of the structures. And if you recall, we had another model, or we had another scenario that contemplated a stormwater pond up west of 3rd Avenue, as well as in the model grading and or swale improvements to the lots that abut the wall. Subsequent, or at least as part of that conversation, I think Councilor Loso had asked me if there was any precedent for this type of an improvement. And I said, I think my response was there isn't necessarily a precedent for this type of improvement, but there certainly have been examples of where the city had invested on storm sewer repairs or culvert repairs elsewhere in the city. The conversation that I was remiss in probably having at the same time with that council, or with the council, was work that is considered public or within the public drainage and utility easement and public a public benefit versus work that would be outside of a public drainage and utility easement and construed as benefit to private property. So I've been trying to walk a fine line with the nature of the improvement in terms of where is there a public interest or a public benefit for the city to invest in, and where would there be certainly still benefit, but investment by a party other than the city. And so when we had solicited the quotes, the scope of work that is in the quote before you this evening included the storm sewer repair, or I should say the replacement of the two catch basin casting inlets to a flared end section, so that area in blue, grading and overflow, emergency overflow swale in this area that's in green, creating a curb cut and lowering that elevation of this swale along the lot line. The other area the other scope of work that we included was the construction of a berm, a short berm along the property line in the drainage easement, so that any water that was coming from Third would be directed to hit the storm sewer apron inlet. The work that was not included in the quote, but was referred to as option 3 in this exhibit, was constructing a swale in the backyard of property 521. And where I was remiss in terms of that discussion is what you see in green and in blue is inside the public drainage and utility easement area. The area that's in pink or purple would have been outside of the public easement. We still agree that it provides benefit when we analyze those 4 scenarios. We still believe this provides benefit to that property owner. I think the part that I was remiss in discussing was, should that be part of the public improvement? And so the quote that we solicited does not have that work in it. If the council feels differently, we still had solicited unit prices for that work from the contractor. So we have the ability to identify what that cost may be, and we still believe it's similar to what I had shared at the last council meeting. If I switch. So if you recall this table, this was our engineer's estimate following the study of the top 3 scenarios that we had modeled. And that was part of our scope. If you recall, in terms of our study scope, we'd say we would develop planning level estimates for the top 2 to 3 alternatives that provide the most benefit. So if you contrast these numbers with the quote that's in your packet, these are the two received from CNL Excavating and Molitor. So the CNL Excavating quote is close to what our revised engineer's estimate is, but it does solely focus on the work that was inside the public drainage and utility easement.
Okay. So what you're saying, Randy, is the purple line is basically on private property, and if the city would do that, that would set a precedence for ever. As far as if anybody had a drainage issue anywhere in the city, we would be obligated to, fix it for them.
Well, it opens a bit of a
Right.
Pandora's
Yeah,
box.
I know.
You're correct in that that is not inside any of the drainage easements that
Okay.
abut the lot. And so that's the challenge that at least staff face is from a protection of the city's interest. This opens some exposure in terms of other drainage area issues or other drainage problems within the community that if you did it for one, it'd be difficult to defend not doing it in another instance.
And I hear what you're saying, but with you're setting up with the green, and that's happening, and I remember us talking about making those basins larger too.
Yep.
Am I wrong in saying that?
So
Or was that right?
No, you're correct. So
Okay.
that area in blue that you see is creating a little bit more of a bowl, if you would, so
Okay.
that the stormwater is coming down from Third Street.
Right.
It's more directed to the apron, the storm sewer apron that's gonna be constructed.
And so, yeah, so that's kind of giving almost like a funnel.
Yes. That's a good analogy, is a
For
funnel.
it, so that it hopefully, is what I'm hearing, is going to keep away from those 2 houses. So really, the pink isn't as much needed if that line berm, am I saying it right?
So the green
Does
berm,
its job?
the green berm is gonna help deflect water to the blue area.
Okay.
However, if you've been out there, you know that Hill Street and Third is high in elevation, the home is lower in elevation. So there is still going to be surface drainage that comes off the abutting yard to the west. So in this case, does my cursor, yeah, my cursor shows up.
There.
So this drainage that comes naturally from this yard still wants to drain in the direction of the 521 lot. And so that's why we still feel that swale in purple adds value. That the key distinction here is that it's not in the public easement.
Right, but kind of to Bob's point too, you're gonna set a precedent to where if anybody else has drainage problems, they're gonna come to the city for
That's
correction.
the staff concern is, you know, we've wanted to try to find a line where we could invest and justify investment, but for me, the line was starting to get drawn in terms of constructing an improvement outside of the drainage easement.
So if we, sorry, Kelly, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just gonna say, so if we can construct option 1 and option 2, they'll still get some reprieve.
There
They
will.
will have some reprieve.
They will, and that was also referenced in the conclusion of the study, in the fact that some of the flooding that occurs was occurring because water couldn't get into the storm sewer fast enough.
Got it.
And so it starts to back up, whether it be on 521 or the lots to the south. And so there still is tangible benefit to the abutting properties by creating this apron and creating this bowl and getting water into the storm sewer faster.
What
There was
about-
also a note, again, in the conclusion of that same report that described the depth of the water in the backyard swales for the lots to the south was much shallower. And so the biggest, again, we're looking for the biggest bang for the buck was in the green and the blue area.
Well, and just my question, if you're saying from the west, if lengthening that line berm a little bit more to be able to funnel that to that area, is that?
So that's possible. Now, the reason we stopped was actually there was a tree planted in the lot line. And so we didn't continue that further north. I guess it would be further north along that lot line without having to take down a
Take it down.
tree. And again, the recognition here was that the lot was low. You're not going to, we generally wouldn't want to direct all of the
Too
water
much.
away.
Got it.
So now if the swale still existed or there was protection for the structure down at the bottom of the hill, because even if we had put, let's say we built the berm and water still jumped the berm, having the backyard flat without a swale still keeps it vulnerable. And so, again, I still maintain that there's benefit for that purple swale. It's just a question of who should build it.
Yeah, I guess I'm in the component of option 1 and 2, not 3 right now. So, I'm gonna move to approve the quote submitted by CNL Excavating for Morningside Loop drainage improvements for option 1 and 2, but not 3
At this time.
at this time.
I second.
Motion on the table, any discussion? So basically that option 3 would be the property owner's issue.
Yes, and so we still think the estimate that we provided is still valid. That $3,000 to $5,000 range, I think, is still what we think the cost is. It's just, like I said, I didn't clarify at the last
Private
meeting that
property,
it was outside of the property line or the drainage and utility
Okay.
easement.
So, I don't know if you've talked to the property owners?
Well,
since-
not all of them. I've talked with one of them. I know the next concern, obviously, is the work still proceeding this year. So one of the conditions of the quote was that the work was performed this year. I had reached out to CNL anticipating that you would still proceed with awarding. They still anticipate performing the work in October. So, in terms of preparations, I know some of the property owners, one of the property owners has a fence that will ultimately be impacted. Those things will be set in motion after the council's award tonight. But there still needs to be some more discussion with the property owners,
Okay.
or coordination,
Is there
I should
only
say.
one property owner involved in this, or is there two?
No, there's two, so
There's two?
on each side of, get back to my exhibit here. So we've got two property owners that are principally affected by this grading and storm
I'm
sewer
talking
work.
about the pink line there.
This would be the same property owner that's affected, but yes, only one property owner for the pink line.
Okay. Motion on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else, Randy?
I think that's it on my portion of the agenda.
Okay, we'll move on to department reports.
I'll sort it
Teresa.
out. Yeah, thanks, council. So Lori and I met with Scott Justvik with Heartsick Fundraising last week. Scott has been contacting stakeholders to serve on the campaign fundraising committee and getting commitments from those. So initially, he had anticipated that he would have that meeting in October. That has not come to fruition. Just some have confirmed commitment and some have not. So he's still trying to get those firmed up. So now that's planned for November. And the one thing that he has completed is a donation pledge form, and he has forwarded, or he will be forwarding to Lori for her review. I have been in contact with CSB, SGU President's Office to schedule that meeting that we've been talking about with council and staff. It's been challenging with schedules, as you can imagine. Right now, if it works for you, it's on their schedule to have that on November 15th, so that'd be prior to your council meeting from 5 to 6. You can either do that in a workshop type meeting or a meet and greet format. So if you can make that, please let us know so we can get that confirmed with the college. I have talked about draft amendments to the personnel policy. I will be forwarding those to Interim City Administrator Jeff O'Neill so he can review that along with legal counsel, and then ultimately bring that to council for consideration to approve the amendments. As you are well aware, I've been working closely with Flattery and Hood on the compensation study update. I attended the October CBB meeting. Some of the things that they're working on is a billboard to promote St. Joe, as well as the Shop Small Corral is coming up as well. Attended the various staff meetings, whether it be development, YMC, the community center project, and then of course GovHR is moving forward with the recruitment of the permanent city administrator. So I had sent an email in regards to that. Charlene Stevens will be the consultant that is working on that, and her first step is to interview council members and the mayor individually, as well as department heads. So please confirm if I know a few of you have confirmed that you could make the meeting or meet with Charlene, on October 26th or 27th. So let's just get those scheduled. And then Chief Fenstein and Sergeant Johnson and I met with St. Cloud School District to talk about their needs, the school resource officer, and the compensation for that to serve Kennedy Community School. So as far as staffing, our finance technician, Debbie Kulzer, starts on Monday, as well as our interim city administrator, Jeff O'Neill, who's in our audience this evening. And then Jeff will spend the whole full day with me tomorrow as well, going on updates on projects and the questions that he may have. So with that, this is my last council meeting, and I want to take the opportunity and just say that I appreciated the opportunity to serve the community, and I want to thank the council as well as staff here.
I think it goes back to saying, hey, thank you for all of the service you've done for St. Joe. It does not go unnoticed, and best of luck in your next chapter.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I just want to extend also, for being a first time in the year and a half, I'm completely saddened. But you were along with the rest of the staff, was just amazing with your direction from them and with helping me be a council member, especially not ever being in this position before. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll miss you.
I will miss you as well, Bob.
Simple as that, yeah. Yeah, thank you. So. Okay, anything more? Nothing more from the news station. Let's go to community development. Mr. Keller.
Yes, hard to follow up after that. So, just a couple highlights here. So, economic development wise, tomorrow's meeting, we're gonna have one of the property owners for the industrial park off County Road 133, CLC Partners. One of them is gonna come in and kind of just provide an update to the EDA on the latest and greatest out in the industrial park and some things that are moving and shaking. I know from a staff level, we've referred quite a few inquiries out that way. Planning Commission approved a banner sign request at their last meeting. So banner sign will be displayed across Minnesota Street from about November 1st to December 5th. And going down to permit activity, so just to highlight this, so in 2021, year-to-date, we were at about 254 permits. This year, we're at over 1,000. And that, even given the storms from way back in May, those storms equated to about 500 or so roofing and siding permits. So even when you subtract those permits, we're still a couple hundred over what we were year-to-date. And typically in a year, we see about 350 to 375 or so. So we've really seen a variety of different projects, and you can see that in also the construction valuation. Last year, we were at about 6.3 million. This year, we're at 28.5 million. And that equates to permit fees and other things. So last year, permit fees were 43,000 or so, and then this year, we're at almost 160,000 in permit fees. So big shout out again to Mike and our inspector and Vicky and everyone else that helps get these permits out, and we pride ourselves in quick, accurate turnaround times. So other than that, meetings, I highlight a couple of those. Had the monthly development staff meeting end of September. Also met with one of the final property owners for the Elm Street project, along with Randy and Therese joined me for that. Did a business retention visit at Pine and Fiber in beginning of October. Also beginning of October, the Central Minnesota Builders Association had a pancake breakfast meeting where they invited area community development directors and building inspectors out. So went to that and attended that, and that was very nice to continue that collaboration and learn what else is going on in the area. And then the last meeting I'll highlight here is Randy and I had met with representatives from Great River Energy along with the city of St. Cloud. So Great River Energy has a power line that they're essentially going to be enhancing. That line runs along Ridgewood Road, going up to the north by 73rd and the border of St. Cloud and St. Joe. So we met with them and are just in the process of providing any comments on that project. So other than that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
No questions? Thank you, Nate. Move on to Mr. Telford, Fire Department.
Good evening, folks. So just an update where we're at. Obviously, our first charters are call line as we go up. Membership, our 5 newest members, tonight is their last night at EMR class, so they'll be up and running with their first responder class.
How did, last night go with, yeah, how long did it take, or when did you guys kinda?
6:30, I think I got, get on the couch about 2 o'clock.
Okay, nothing new from what started, still looking into it?
They're gonna come, I think Thursday to investigate it. I did talk to Dollar General, been in contact with them, with their corporate officers throughout the day. They're gonna be having security fence put up tomorrow around 9, to try to keep as much as we can. Prior to this, I was just back with a couple more guys who started burning cans in some areas, so.
Really?
There's a lot of fuel in there that
Ignited?
just can't get to.
Okay, well, thank you guys. Thank you so much for being there.
And for being
Thank you,
here
Jeff.
tonight, since
Yeah.
you did all nighter. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Lori, you're up next.
All right, I'm just gonna highlight a couple items on my report, and maybe Ryan wants to talk more on the cellular endpoint conversion. Just wrapping up that project, we did complete 162 out of 175 homes and businesses that we converted over to cellular endpoints for those meters. We're down to now where there were a few people that just were out of town, not able to get theirs replaced. And we're waiting on some supplies as well, some supply chain issues with the endpoints, because there's some, it's electronic components to it. That's really kind of the holdup on them. We are planning on, in the budget with the water fund, we're gonna attempt to try to get this done over the next 3 to 4 years. Currently, I have about 500 accounts to be converted per year. We'll see how that shakes out. That kind of follows with my next point is the Waterworth financial modeling. Vicki and I met with them last week. We've been feeding them information about our water and sewer funds, projects that are coming up. There's a little more data that we have to compile before it's ready for council presentation. So we are anticipating November 22nd workshop for that presentation, which will actually be a good meeting to talk about that, because we'll follow up on where we're at with budget, looking at the proposed fee schedule, and those sort of things with the council. So it'll be a good night to kind of talk about that and what we're seeing for the water and sewer fund. The budget. So I did get some information back from the county on the rates with the preliminary budget that the council adopted in September. I had estimated that our market value was gonna go up 19%, and that was based on information from the county assessor. The number is closer to 16, 17%, and so the budget and the levy that was adopted in September is about flat with the 2022 rate, where we thought we might be 1% down. It's actually pretty close to the same. The motion that you took earlier with the consent agenda, paying off those 2 bonds early, that's gonna save us some debt levy that was included in the budget for '23. So with that, that will show a little bit of a decrease just in that action alone. We're still going into working on negotiations, the compensation study, and so those numbers can be fine-tuned before we get to the final adoption in December. I just really want to say thanks to Vicki again too for a lot of work that she's been doing on a couple projects. The cellular meter conversion, she really, Ryan can attest to this. We had a team from the city here between Public Works and Finance working on that project, and Vicki really kind of spearheaded it and kept it going in a direction and getting all the information that we needed. So would like to publicly thank her for the work that she's done, along with the team to really, was a fairly successful implementation thus far, so. And I can't wait for Debbie to start next week, have some help in the finance. There's a lot of things going on, and she'll be welcomed for sure. So if you have any questions about anything else in my report.
No questions? We'll move on to Ryan.
Lori covered everything.
Okay.
Any questions?
No, we'll move on to the police chief.
No, the only thing I'll add to the cell meter project, the few last meters, we are gonna handle those internally with the public works staff, so. I did attend the Fall Expo, a week ago, so I've got all grandiose ideas for new equipment. 100,000, yeah.
Preliminary budget's already been approved.
As you all probably seen, the fall appliance and collection cleanup was just this last weekend on Saturday. I think it went really well, probably the best we've seen in a long time. Driving through town today, there's a few pieces laying around. I think I counted maybe 6 locations, but not like we've seen in the past, so very, very good job. Bike share program has come to an end, so we've collected all the bikes between us and Way Park. And we've put those in the Wobegon building for the winter. And then we're really just deep diving into fall winterizing, closing down parks, blowing out sprinkler lines, and flopping our equipment around from summer to winter. So, as you probably have seen also, the street sweeper's been out collecting leaves, keeping those storm drains clean. Staff is business as normal. Upcoming events, water, wastewater, continuing education, park board on the 24th. Development meeting on the 25th, Central Minnesota Water Alliance on the 27th, and annual wastewater service and capital improvement discussion on 3 November. Pending your questions.
How's our mechanic doing?
Yes.
That's what I was thinking.
Actually, I just told him that the other day. I go, I don't know that I like this.
Everything seems to be going well, though.
Yes, everything's going great.
Getting ready for hopefully a winter with not a lot of breakdowns.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Move on to the next, report, Mr. Chief.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of what Ryan said there too. It's kind of refreshing that we can get oil changes now done inside the week instead of scheduling them out 2 to 3 weeks out. We've had a few squads that have gone down. Derek's jumped right on board fixing upper control arms and all kinds of things that, he's got a pretty good portfolio of things he knows how to do. So it's been very good that way, keeping him in business. So, as far as monthly report goes, outside of our general day-to-day things, some things that we've done this past go-around was every 2 years, the BCA holds a user conference in St. Cloud. Fortunately, it's in St. Cloud, so we don't have any travel expense. This year I took both sergeants and both Mary from records and Candy from the police clerk position. Most of it's about data retention. There's several different tracks you can pick depending on what fits your job mostly. So some went for data policies, some went to what can be all released and stuff as well. So it was a good class. 2 days in St. Cloud was spent there. Homecoming was October 1st. Honestly, nothing to report on it. It was what I'd like to see, nice and quiet. So actually, it was the first homecoming in about 20 years I didn't have to be at it all. Both sergeants said they would take it from there, so I gave them the reins and they did a great job. At the time of this report last week on Wednesday, Take Back the Night had not occurred yet. They did that on Thursday night. Actually went fairly well. The only problem we probably had was it was a little difficult getting the end of the route shut down. We had some different officers and some security on the far end that some trucks were starting to go the wrong direction, and to try to get it closed down. They were kind of slow marchers. I think the weather played a little bit of a damper on there. There wasn't as many people that came out. So I think the crowd just moved a little slower. But it went well. They were very safe and very organized, so that was great. Obviously, with watching the news, with all the fentanyl and stuff going on, we've had lots of requests this year to participate in these trunk or treat events rather than sending kids door to door doing trick or treating. So we have 3 as of right now, one at Kennedy School, one at Resurrection Lutheran Church, and one the JCs are putting on at Century Bank. So we're going to be taking part, if possible, in all 3 of those. I did advise all of them that we can't pay overtime, and if we have a greater call that comes out, we apologize for not being able to be there, and they all understood that. So, department recertified in TASER for the year again. That was nothing eventful. And then we continue to meet every month with the colleges. Again, nothing to report out of that. Staff is business as usual. And on the foreseeable radar, no upcoming events or meetings other than routine ones. Any questions?
I just want to shout out, I was at the Take Back the Night, and I appreciate everything that you guys did. I thought you were Johnny on the spot, so thank you.
I thought it went well. I thought
I thought
for
it
the
did.
first one and not having any other direction to go with at all, I thought it went, I mean, we expected a little bit of hiccups here and there to get it officially shut down. With the 4th of July, we've done it for so many years, so we know we need an hour ahead of time to prep, close down intersections, so it's very well. We just didn't know how much time we needed for how it took for them around the corner from College in Minnesota. And so, but once we got them shut down, they worked out real well, so.
Okay, number 10, any committee and board reports? Hearing none, we'll move on to council reports and miscellaneous business, anything.
Not this time.
Well, I'd make a motion to adjourn then.
One second.
Adjourned we are. Paper.
Put these up here for you to sign.
Okay,
So.
which ones?
All of the ones that have the green stickies on them.
Okay.
Sign those.
One question before you're done. Charlene Stevens, October 26th.